Welcome friends. In this session, we'll be talking about basics of copyright. In this lecture, I'll try to clarify what is copyright, what are the rights associated with copyright, what is the subject matter which is protected under copyright, the different forms of copyright, and why copyright protection is essential. So let us first start. What is copyright? Why do we need a protection under the Copyright Act? Copyright is a form of intellectual property. When we talk about intellectual property, I think now everybody knows about intellectual property. As we know that property is something which is tangible in a tangible form, which can be brought, which can be sold, which can be assigned, the rights associated with property can be assigned to someone. Similarly, intellectual property is a property which is the product of intellect, your intellect. For example, if I invent something or if I write something, it is a form of intellectual property, a property which is the product of my intellect. So it is my property. Copyright is a form of intellectual property. Basically, when we talk about intellectual property, it can be divided into two forms. One is the industrial property and the other is copyright. So here in today's discussion, we'll be talking about what is copyright and what are the rights related with copyrights. I'll try to clarify all those things which is essential for us to know, because as we know that we all are in an arena where we are creating some sort of intellectual property. We all are writing something. Many times we see that just as an accidentally, we have written something, a poetry, a novel, or at times we have also invented a song. I would not use the word invented, but written a song. So we are falling into an arena, or we are entering into a venture where we are writing something, where we are creating intellectual property. And the creators of intellectual property, even if it's accidentally we have created and we don't want our property to be stolen by someone, we need some sort of protection. So definitely, we need to know how we can protect our intellectual property and what are the works which can be protected under copyright and why a copyright is essential. So let's see how we will venture into it gradually. The first thing which is essential is what is copyright. As I told you, it is a form of intellectual property. And intellectual property is any property which is the creation of our human mind, a property which we have created, the master for which we are the masters. How we can hold it, we can sell it, we can assign it, we can lease it to anyone, just like any other property. So if we look into the definition of copyright, copyright is actually, the word has been taken from copier. Copier was actually used, it is in the Oxford Dictionary in 1856. It meant, according to Oxford Dictionary, the word copy is presumed to date back to circa and was used to connote a manuscript or other matter prepared for printing. That means that if an author has written something and he wanted the printing of it, it was only used for that. So as the word itself has two terms, copy and write. So whom should I give it for copying it? Copy means to make an exact printing of it, and write, the right to be given to whom? Because I have created something, so it is it is completely my sole responsibility that whom should I give it for copying. If I don't want it to be copied, or if I don't want it to be stolen by someone and reproduced or adapted or translated, it is in my completely in my own. It is my own responsibility to get it protected. So earlier, it was the word copyright was to print only for printing. We used to use it for printing, but now people have started knowing their own responsibility and their own rights, that how we should protect our own writings. So we have started the modern technology, and because of the modern technology, the internet and all, there's a lot of stealing of our writings, of our text, of our scripts. So in order to protect that, every nation all over the world have created their own copyright laws. So in order to protect their own nationals' creation of copyright work, so that their works may be protected. Those forms, what works can be protected under the copyright law. The works which can be protected under copyright law are literary, musical, artistic, cinematographic, dramatic, choreographic and computer programs. Now when we talk about literary work means any type of literature which you have created. You have written a novel, it's a literary work. You have written some form of music, you have choreographed some form of music, it is a work of copyright. It can be protected under the copyright law. Any type of artistic creation, you have made a drawing, a painting or anything, it comes under the purview of copyright. A cinematographic film. So when we talk about cinematographic film, it means a video film. A film for which a lot of other video rolls have been made. So all those rolls which have been created are the purview of, can get a protection under the copyright law. Dramatic. Dramatic means any type of drama which you have created. Sometimes what happens, we write a novel. And then we think that since it is in a print form, we want it to be adapted in the drama. So even that type of venture can be protected under the copyright law. Choreography, the dance forms which are created by choreographers, even they can opt for a protection of it. If they don't want that dance, the themes or the dance which they have created, the roles which they have created to be taken by somebody else, they can go for a copyright protection of it. Even computer programs. Now when I'm talking about copyright protection, people must be thinking that we need to go for a registration of thing, which is very, very difficult for us. Because if I have written a novel, every time I write a novel, I cannot go to the copyright to go for a protection of it. It is as simple. If we do not want, registration is not a very important process. If we do not want to go for a registration, simply use the word C. If you use the word C or all license reserved to yourself, you protect your work. So that means you have written it and you have a complete, you can say a hold on your work, and you don't want anybody to be copying it. So if you simply write a C on it or write that all rights reserved with my work, this is my work, and you produce it to or you, even if you show it in the internet, because nowadays the technology is so fast that we put it in the Facebook. So if we do not write this type of words, if we do not use this type of terms, people may steal it from us. Our works may be stolen, and they can say that it is their work. So we have to be very cautious. So no, registration is not a very important process. It is not an important thing. Even without registration, we can go for a protection of our things. Now, as I've said, that these works, literary, musical, artistic, cinematographic, dramatic, choreographic and computer programs can be protected under the copyright law. Now, people might be thinking that any kind of literary work means anything which has merit. Now, here merit is not involved. Even if you make a very dirty painting and you don't want that my dirty painting be copied by anyone. So the value of the thing, the merit of the thing is not very important. What is important is that it should be a literary work. It may be good or bad. The value of it is not associated with it. So even if I write a novel which is not liked by many a times what happens that lots of people do not like my work, the work which I have written, a unit or a writing or a novel which is not liked by many. That doesn't mean that it stops me from getting a copyright protection. I can get a copyright protection of even the work which is not liked by many, because it is my work. So I may think it to be worthy. The others may not be. They may not think it to be worthy. So any type of merit is not associated with the protection of copyright. Now, again, when we say that the works are to be protected under the copyright law, there are two essential conditions. The work has to be original, and the protection, it extends to expression only and not to ideas. So these are the conditions for protection under the copyright law. The first and the foremost thing is that the work has to be original. Now, what is meant by originality? This is very important to know when we're talking about originality. What is meant by originality? Different people have different meanings of originality. If I say a thing is original, it means that it should be my original work. It should be my mind's creation, my creation. Not necessarily. For some, it may be a creation, new creation. For some, it may be just a derivative work of the originality. But the originality should lie in that work too. I'll give you an example of that. But before giving an example of that, let me explain the term what is original. When we say something is original, there should be some sort of skill, some sort of labor, some sort of judgment involved in it. Then only the thing is considered to be original. If I consider the author to be the original creator of a work, metaphysical poet, Mahadevi Verma's work, it is the original work of Mahadevi Verma. If Mahadevi Verma has written metaphysical poetry, it is her original work. She is the author of that work. Nobody can take that authorship from her. She will get copyright for her own creation. But if somebody compiles the work of Mahadevi Verma, he cannot get the copyright protection for the works of Mahadevi Verma because it is the work of Mahadevi Verma. But if somebody compiles all her work in a form, in a systematic manner, by which he has applied some sort of judgment, some sort of skill, some sort of labor, where he can say, where he can describe that this is my originality, he can get a copyright protection of it. So here we can say that if somebody copies the same type of form, same type of form from him in compiling it, then that will be considered to be copyright protection. So a copyright violation. So here I can say that the originality lies in the way, in the systematic manner, in the way he has compiled the poetries of Mahadevi Verma. So the originality lies there. That is also considered to be original. And this is also considered to be original. Original because she has written it, she is the author of the creation. But the compilation, the way, the form in which he has compiled is considered to be original, and he can get a copyright protection of his compilation of the metaphysical poetries of Mahadevi Verma or of other poets, number of poets, metaphysical poetries of different poets, which he has structured in different way, in a manner which he considers it to be correct. The second very important thing is that the protection extends to expression only and not to ideas. This is a very important form, which we all should understand, that ideas are not protected under the copyright protection. That means that copyright, 3 people, 10 people, 20 people, all can have the same ideas. I can have an idea, if I think that I have an idea to take the picture of sunset, even you can have an idea of taking a picture of the sunset. Even some other person who is living in Australia can have the same idea of taking a picture of the sunset. So if we copyright the idea, now one person can take the picture of sunset, the other person cannot take, but it was his original idea. He had thought the same way. So many people can have the same ideas, but the expression, the way the person has expressed will always be different. This is very, very important to understand, that the way I express, I take the picture of the sunset will be different from the person who has taken the same picture and who is in Australia, or even you, even anyone who has taken the picture. It will be a different form. It will be in a different form. We can have the same ideas, but the way of expression will be completely different. I think everybody will agree with that. So if we start copyrighting ideas, it will become very difficult for people to make new things. So that is why the protection, it only extends to expression. We can have the same ideas, we can borrow the ideas also, but we have to have our own expression. Even if we borrow the ideas, not necessarily that ideas cannot be borrowed. It always happens that we borrow ideas. So ideas cannot be protected under the copyright law. Most of the time what happens, that even if we give an idea, the way of expression will not be the same of the other person. If I give an idea of making a film on robbery or on something related to, or even on our epics. Let's take an example of our epics. When we make a film on Ramayana, 2 people who are making similar films on Ramayana will not have the same form of expression. Their films will be completely different. One person will be depicting a different the expression will be depicted in a different manner, the other person will be depicted in a different manner. So we can say that the expressions of 2 people having the same ideas are always different. So that is why expressions can be copyrighted, but ideas cannot be copyrighted. And if you violate the expression of a person, definitely you will be violating the copyright law or doing an infringement. Let me give an example. If I take a photograph of Qutub Minar. I have taken the photograph of Qutub Minar and I have sold it to so many people. If another person has taken the photograph of Qutub Minar and sold it to several person, even he will be getting a copyright protection of his work and I will be getting a copyright protection of my work. But if he sells my photograph, the photograph which I have taken, then he will be infringing the copyright law, or there will be a violation of the copyright law. I think now it is very clear that why ideas are not protected and only the expression is protected. So the two important essentials for the protection under the copyright law is the work has to be original, and the second, the protection extends only to expression and not to ideas. Second thing, the rights in copyright. Because whenever we talk about copyright, we also say copyright and related rights. Copyright itself is associated with a number of rights. Properties have a lot of rights. So even copyright, it has a number of rights. The first right is economic right, and the second is moral right. The rights associated with copyright are economic and moral, but with that also we have a number of rights. So when we talk about, first let me explain you the moral rights, because it is very easier to understand the moral rights, and then we will move on to the economic rights. Though economic rights are always higher than the moral rights, but still I can say when we talk about moral rights are not binding, but definitely they have some ethical or moral issues related with it. When we talk about morality, now in this nowadays we can say that all over the world we when we talk about morality, nobody is interested, because moral rights are not binding. People think that because morality is not binding, so people think it very easy. Virtues, ethics, these things are no more considered to be very important. But I think in today's arena, it is important also to consider that a person who has actually put a lot of labor and written something has a moral right towards it. So when we're talking about moral rights, the author who has actually contributed his labor in writing something has a moral right to it. So moral right actually means, moral right is also known in some of the countries as author's rights. So if I have contributed to something, I have a right towards it to be acknowledged that it is my work. So normally what happens, that whenever a person writes something or creates something, his name is always associated with it as a moral right. Even if you do not, you need to acknowledge that it is his moral right, because it is his moral right. Because ethics says, because of virtues, we cannot devoid him of the value which he has associated with the work which he has created. So definitely we can say that the moral right is a very important right, though it is not given much preference, so it is not binding, but it has a lot of value. It needs to have a value, because a person who has actually created labor should be acknowledged for what he has done. So when we talk about moral rights or author's rights, a person who's actually written something should always be acknowledged for what he has written, and his name should always be there. The second important thing is economic rights. So what are economic rights? Economic rights are related with, when we talk about economy, we can understand that economics relates with the money. So if I have done something, I should get a benefit of that. I should get some sort of benefit of that. So I have the right. The person who has actually created has all the economic rights. And in form of economic rights, we have the translation rights, the adaptation rights, the right of licensing someone, the right of assigning someone. So when somebody has written a book and wants to assign the adaptation rights, wants to assign the translation rights to someone, he has he is given all the right to give it to somebody else in lieu of money. So that is known as economic rights. And when we talk about economic rights, the rights related to it is adaptation rights, translation rights, performing rights, adaptation rights, and so many other rights. So even the broadcasting rights, we have all the rights related with that. I've already mentioned the economic rights relates to right of reproduction and other associated rights, translation, adaptation rights, the performing rights, and broadcasting rights. One very important thing which I'd like to mention is that copyright is not a permanent right. It is not an absolute right, and it is granted to a person who is actually created for a period of 60 years, for a period which extends to the lifetime of the author and 60 years from the year in which the author dies. That means the lifetime of the author plus 60 years. After that, the work of the creator goes to the public domain and anybody can access it. And you can also use it, but with proper acknowledgement. So what is very important is that whenever we talk about any type of intellectual property, dissemination of knowledge is important. So that our work be valued by others, and so that there should be a dissemination of knowledge, it is also important that we should allow our work to be circulated. And it can be only allowed, it can be given by the person who's actually created when some sort of reward be given to him. So that is why a duration of copyright is given, a term of copyright is given to the person who's actually created in lieu of, as a reward to him, that is the lifetime of the author and 60 years. After that, the thing comes to the public domain. Now, we know that there are so many writers who have written so many things, and now it is in the public domain. Anybody can access it. Even our epics are in the public domain, and we can access it. Because these are the author has already died, and 60 years has also passed out, and now it has become a public domain. Before that also, I would like to circulate to people, I would like to make people understand that since we have written something, or we have created something, we have created it not for our pleasure, not for keeping it for ourselves, to ourselves. We want, if we have created something, it should be in circulation. We should disseminate that knowledge. So that is why we should be allowed, we should try to make ourselves such broad-minded that we should allow people to read our things, then definitely acknowledge us also at the same time. That is why now the idea of copyleft has come. The idea of open sources have come. And these ideas, because we want that our things to be valued by other people. People should know that what we have written. They should understand what we are writing and value also. And this way the knowledge will be disseminated. The first and foremost, you can say, objective of intellectual property right is to any type of intellectual property right. And here I'm not talking about just copyright. Any type of intellectual property right is to dissemination of knowledge. And dissemination of knowledge at the same time some sort of reward to the person who's actually created it. So now in today's, by this I am winding up my complete lecture, and I can just review my things, that what we have gone through. We have gone through that what is copyright. Now we understand, my students must be understanding now, knowing what is copyright and how copyright has been, what are the works which are protected under the copyright law, what are the conditions for protection under copyright law. Not only the works which are protected by law, but what are the conditions, the two conditions, that the work has to be original and the protection, it extends to expression only and not to ideas. That means ideas cannot be protected, but expressions can be protected. So with that, I come to an end of my session. Thank you very much.